Good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Hope you're all doing well this morning. Lots to get into. Manchester United start to finalise their transfer plans for the summer, which we knew was going to happen this week. We'll talk more about that. Also, a new striker been linked with Manchester United, a more realistic striker if we're looking to bring in a striker this summer. Certainly more realistic. Also, some interesting insights from Mike Phelan, who is technically the assistant manager of Manchester United, talking openly about what's going on at United. Very interesting insight there. Injury news as well, a few other things, and for a little bit of a change in the last few minutes of the show, I want to do a bit of a transfer Q&A because we don't do enough of that as a community. I don't think we answer little questions, so we'll do that towards the end as well. So smash a like on the video, let's get going. So we're going to start off with a story that's coming out of 90minutes.com. Now look, this is rather interesting, and the timing's quite interesting because it's not sensationalist, the story. It's just like, it's out there and it's basically saying that Manchester United are extensively running checks on Jules Kounde and Pau Torres. One at Villarreal and obviously the other one at Sevilla, Kounde at Sevilla and Torres at Villarreal. Now, these are two players that have been mentioned quite extensively by you over the last few weeks and months, and I think are two players that I don't think many Manchester United fans would be opposed to us looking at. But this week is very, very interesting. We will be talking about Patson Daca as well, Denton, in a moment. But this is really interesting because this week was always going to be the week that Manchester United and Solskjaer and the board were going to sit down and finalise their transfer plans. If you remember, Romano was saying it probably about 2 months ago, and we've had various outlets saying that Manchester United were going to sit down at the back end of March and finalise their transfer plans. Well, this is their last opportunity to do it. I mean, by the middle of next week, everyone's played international football. You're back training for the game against Brighton. So this week is the week where Solskjaer will be sitting down with Murtaugh and Fletcher and Woodward and Carrick and discussing what they're going to do for the summer. So it's interesting that there is this now news about Kounde and Torres coming out and then them being pushed up the list. Now, I personally believe that Varane is still the dream centre-back that Manchester United want to bring in. And again, there was another story yesterday from Spain that Varane has sounded out PSG and Manchester United about a move. Now, I think that's quite interesting. I don't think Manchester United have got a chance in hell of getting Varane. I would take him at Manchester United, but I think PSG is probably where he would end up. French, 28, massive club PSG. All right, the domestic league is quite simple and not very challenging, but they are consistently now getting to the latter stages of the Champions League, which is what Varane will quite fancy, playing with people like Neymar and Mbappe. I think Varane's going to fancy PSG more than he fancies Manchester United. So I don't think that's realistic for us. And also, I'm not 100% sure, I don't know what you think about whether Varane, if I walked in the room and I said, here's Varane and here's Kounde, who would you take? I think some people would take Varane. I think a lot of people would take Kounde. So maybe what Manchester United go for is, maybe we're better off going for somebody that a little bit younger, like a Torres or a Kounde. The main thing is that we're not looking at a Ben White or somebody like that. Ben Shite, as I call him. I mean, he's not shit. I'm sorry, Ben. You're not a bad centre-back, but you're not a Manchester United centre-back, in my opinion. So I think that it's interesting about Pau Torres. It's interesting about Jules Kounde. I think Kounde, from a Manchester United point of view, I like Kounde. I do. I really like him, and I've said that for a very long time. And I'm quite pleased that Sevilla got knocked out by Dortmund in the Champions League, and I'm quite pleased that some people were like, oh, he's overrated and he's shit, because I think some people don't really understand what he is. And I enjoy that, because I think if he'd played brilliant, if he'd pocketed Harlan in the Sevilla Dortmund game, then his price would have gone up, the interest would have gone up, and basically what I do when there's a player I like, what I want United to buy, I don't really want to see them tearing it up in the Champions League. I want them to probably play a bit shit, because I've already made my mind up that I think they're good enough. So if they play a little bit shit in front of everybody, then maybe the interest will wane off a bit. But I would like Kounde. I think he's got the right attributes for Manchester United. I think he'd complement Maguire quite well. And I think for £50 million, that's what Manchester United should be paying. I hear people saying, well, 50 million for Kounde, it's too much. We should be spending £50 million on a centre-back. I think if you spend anything less than that, you've got to question, well, what are we getting? Now, unless you're getting somebody with 1 year left on their contract or, whatever, but I think £50 million is what we should be spending, because what we're trying to bring in here is a centre-back better than what we've got. Well, hello, we spent £80 million on Harry Maguire, and whilst he was overpriced, I'd still say that Harry Maguire in the modern game is somewhere between 40 and 50 million quid. So we should be buying a 50 million pound centre-back, and Kounde fits that bill. Pau Torres is interesting. I have not watched a lot of Villarreal this season. In fact, I don't think I've watched Villarreal this season. I can't think of a game that I've watched Villarreal this season, and I certainly haven't watched La Liga. But what I know of Pau Torres probably comes mainly from what I've seen on highlights or Spanish national games or last season. So when I've seen Pau Torres, I see a left-footed centre-back who's good in the air, who's good on the ball, and is relatively fast. And I think, you know what, that is what Manchester United absolutely need. Now, I don't think we need to get a left-footed centre-back. I spoke about this a year ago, and I think, we were talking about people like Badiashile and Gabriel who went to Arsenal. I think there was a bit of an obsession about getting a left-sided centre-back, but I don't think we necessarily do need a left-sided centre-back. I think Harry Maguire does a good job in that position, even though he's right-footed. I'd take Kounde over Pau Torres. But if we did get Pau Torres, I suppose you do solve that problem, don't you? And I can see, like, Bradley's talking about the height of Kounde. I find this hilarious, really. I think this is ridiculous. One of my favourite centre-backs. In fact, I'm doing a video with somebody later. I'm recording it at 11 o'clock, and it's my favourite 11 of my lifetime. And it doesn't have to be United players. It can be like players that you've liked throughout your life. And Cannavaro is one of my favourite centre-backs of my life. I absolutely love Fabio Cannavaro when he was playing, and he was under 6 foot. So, and Puyol, I think, was under 6 foot. So this height thing about centre-backs is ridiculous. We've got Harry Maguire. He's 7'5". Like, we don't need to have a really tall centre-back. And a lot of these smaller centre-backs are actually very good have got a good jump on them anyway. Welcome to Abdullah Irwin. So I would take Kounde. I mean, for me, I'm happy if Manchester United are looking at Varane, Kounde and Torres. And as long as they get one of those players, I can deal with it. However, I mean, Baresi was 5'9", says Brandon Stevens as well. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's heightist. I mean, years ago, you used to have to be a certain height to go in the police force in the UK. It's ridiculous. Oh, you're 6 foot, but you're 5'6". You're obviously going to be better at the job. It's not how big you are, it's what you do with it, isn't it? That's what I always say. And fortunately, I've always been big. But the reality is, I don't think that's a reason. And look, let me just say this. If Manchester United are looking at Kounde and Varane and Torres and they get one of those players, I'm quite happy. My only concern would be if we bought Torres, would he still pick Lindelof and Maguire? That would be my only concern. And can I just say as well, on this most important week where Manchester United are going to be finalising their transfer plans, can I just say this? I really want to say this, and I want to know what your opinion is. I put it out on Twitter today, so you might have seen it if you follow me on Twitter. And I said, I'm not greedy. If Manchester United got Kounde, Rice and kept Pogba, I'd consider that a good summer. It would be well under a net spend of about 60 million. And I think we'd be a much better team next year. And people, I haven't even looked at the replies because I didn't have time. I just tweeted it. It was just an observation. And I know a lot of people are going to go, well, we need a right winger, we need a striker, this, that and the other. But if we're dealing in a realistic summer, and I want to do this because I know that people at Manchester United watch this channel, not because they're watching me. I think they watch to see what's being said, and they, obviously they're going to watch the live comments as well. And I think that, I think fans do get labelled as hysterical and unrealistic, and I think it's very unfair. But I think in the transfer market we can be a little bit like that. And I woke up this morning and I thought, you know what? Judging on what Manchester United have done over the last few years, what's a good summer based on what this club normally does? Well, they normally don't spend anything more than 60 million net spend. So I think 60 million for Declan Rice, 50 million for Kounde, but we make 50 million from selling Lingard and maybe a goalkeeper, and you remove people like Matic, you maybe get some money for Pereira. That is a realistic summer for Manchester United. Declan Rice, Kounde and keeping Paul Pogba. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but I've just done a realistic transfer summer for Manchester United. 2 signings and you keep Paul Pogba. We would be a better team next year with a top-class centre-back and a top-class CDM. We would be. I know people will say, what are you going to do up front? Well, I've got Anthony Martial. I've got Mason Greenwood. You've got people like Hugill and McNeil who are very young, but you never know. Next year, they're a year older. On the right wing, what you're going to do? Well, we've still got Diallo, Palestri, who's doing quite well in La Liga as well. You've still got Rashford. You've still got Martial and Greenwood who can play out wide there. I mean, I do think we need a right winger, but then you've got Shoretire as well. You've got Hannibal. There are players that can come through. I'm just saying, if we can only sign 2 players, that's what I would do. I think it's a shame that we want players to play average so other teams won't see the potential because our board is so incompetent with transfers. That's true, AJ Flores, that is true. For me, the centre-back has to be blatantly better than Lindelof, otherwise Ollie won't see it. We all know that Van der Beek, McSauce, but Ollie doesn't. Varane or Maga, says Vin Carney. Yeah, I agree. And I also think as well, I'm going to talk about the midfielder in a minute, and I also want to talk about what Mike Phelan was talking about. But I was speaking to somebody yesterday, a couple of people yesterday actually, and we were talking about Harlan, and it's almost irritating for me how we're constantly being talked about with Erling Haaland, and one of the big drivers of the Erling Haaland thing is the Manchester Evening News, which I read the Manchester Evening News. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. There's a lot of stuff in there that's a load of shite, but there's a lot of stuff in this show that's a load of shite because Manchester Evening News will talk about other outlets, and I like that, and that's what we do on the news show in the morning. Sometimes I'll mention stuff from the Star or the Sun. I'll say it's from the Star or the Sun, and sometimes we'll mention stuff from good outlets, and we'll say it's from a good outlet. That's the whole point of a news show. But it's Manchester Evening News sources who keep talking about Manchester United's priority being Erling Haaland. I can't get my hat on this. I can't understand why we are linked to to Erling Haaland. It makes absolutely no sense. Why would you blow more than your budget on one player when we are? You know what? I saw somebody say this yesterday on social media, and I wish I'd written down their ats because they're absolutely spot on. They said Erling Haaland needs to go to a club where he's the final piece of the jigsaw, not where he is. Not where he's the final piece of the jigsaw, but there's loads of pieces of the jigsaw missing. And that's what he's doing. If you go, and they were talking about it it was actually the video I did on That's Football. If anybody watched it, I was talking about where Erling Haaland's going to go, and it was on the comments of that video. It wasn't on Twitter actually. I've just reminded myself, and it's probably been starred or liked on there. And it's right. If Erling Haaland goes to Chelsea, I think Chelsea are probably one top striker away from being a really good side. If he goes to Man City, well, Man City are already a good side, but they've never really had a really good striker, have they? Apart from Maguire, but I mean, this season they haven't. If he comes to Manchester United, we spend absolutely everything on one player, and that's not the end of our problems. We've still got McFred in midfield, we've still got Magaluf at the back, we still haven't really got any creative wingers. So it's absolutely stunning that Erling Haaland is being circulated around Manchester United Football Club from decent sources when it makes absolutely no sense for us to make this signing at all. It's like, you know what it is? It's like, I don't know whether you had it when you were at school, and you're getting ready to play football for the school football team, and it's a big game. You're all there. You've got to the semi-final, and you're having your little chat before the game, going through what you need to do. Come on, we win this game, we get to the final. And then this lad who's like shit at football walks into the dressing room wearing Adidas Predators and, I'm ready, lads. And you're like, I really like your effort, but there's no way. Why are you even here? And that's a little bit like Manchester United walking into an Erling Haaland transfer race, because it's like, well, yeah, you well done. You've got the Adidas Predators and you can afford to get the stuff, but why are you here? You're not good enough to be in this race. And as a Manchester United fan, I find it really hard to say that, but we can't be hypocritical here. We can't sit here and say how many problems this football club has got, and then sit here and say that it's right that we're in for Erling Haaland. I think it's wrong on every level. For what the thing that irritates me the most about Manchester United potentially being in an Erling Haaland race is, where the fuck have you got 120 million quid from? And if you've got 120 million quid, why are you not spending it on the team? That's the thing that's in my head, because this is circulating. This is circulating from decent sources that Manchester United are prioritising Erling Haaland. Well, if they're prioritising Erling Haaland, they've got 100 million quid. If they've got 100 million quid, why is that not being spent previously or this summer on the areas that need to be improved? So I'm actually irritated by our links to Erling Haaland, because I just think it exposes massive Major incompetence running through that football club, yes again. And if Solskjaer and his coaches are anything to do with this, then I'm sorry, I think you're as incompetent as the board. Because if you think Erling Haaland is all that team needs, I'm sorry, it's astounding how inept we are being run as a football club if we think that signing a £120 million striker is going to solve the problems of that football team. I mean, literally, you could not have a better advert for what United's problems are than the game we played 3 days ago. And yet they might be sitting there this week saying, how do we get Erling? How do we get Erling? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Have you not seen what the real issue is with that football club? You're playing a back six, you're bubble wrapping slow centre-backs, and you're putting two midfielders in front of them who basically you have to put Duracell batteries into their back and tell them to run around for 90 minutes like headless chickens. They can't pass, they can't score, they can't dribble, they can't mark. I mean, Jesus Christ, sort your bloody team out before you go and try and get your icing on your cake. Bake a bloody cake first. Fun fact, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has yet to win a trophy from the last 34 consecutive competitive competitions he's started as a football manager, says Andre. Yeah, but a fun fact is we've only lost one game in the last 23 Premier League games. So, you know, I'm not going to throw Ole under the bus. I still think that results-wise, this season has been very good. But I also agree that there are mitigating factors. We're better this season because we've got Bruno for a full season and not half a season. That's factual as far as I'm concerned. We've won a lot of games by one goal this season. We don't create enough chances. We win a lot of games by one goal because we play a back six and we rely on a bit of individualism on the attack to get a goal. Our tactics are very much like George Graham of 30 years ago at Arsenal. Mark, we are getting Ben White. Maguire said he prefers to play him. Maguire will be the demise of this football club and I'm ashamed he's our captain, says Anil. I mean, I want to move on to what Mike Phelan said. I want to talk about a couple of other things as well. But can I just say, I thought what Jay said on the show on Monday, and look, it got a bit heated on the show on Monday, but it is what it is. But I thought what he said about Harry Maguire was actually very reminiscent of what I said a few weeks ago, that Harry Maguire will not be dropped by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He didn't lose the captaincy in the summer. He constantly picks him. He's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's biggest signing, and it needs to work. If Solskjaer's going to be our manager, then it needs to work out with Harry Maguire, because Harry Maguire is the sword that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to have to fall on if it goes wrong. He will not drop him. He can't sell him. He is his captain, and Maguire is something that if you want us to be successful under Solskjaer, and I do, then Harry Maguire has got to work out, because that player is the player that he is basically building his future around. He's backed himself into a corner with Maguire. He spent 80 million quid on him. He's got to stick with him, because that's the sort of signing that your career is defined by if you get it wrong. You spend that amount of money on a player, they've got to work. So, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's very evident to me that when people start saying Maguire's the player that needs to be dropped, it's a futile point unless you're going to be the manager of Manchester United, because it's very clear that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to keep him as captain and he's going to keep picking him, because he has to do that. He's gone all in on him, and he's got to stick. He's going to stick with him. A new manager won't have to, but Solskjaer certainly does. If Ole plays Magaluf when we have Kounde, or your thoughts, says Salah Ahmed. Well, Ole's stubbornness will get him the sack. I've said this many times before. If he carries on next season with Magaluf and McFred, then he's going to get the sack. And to be honest with you, I will be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer out next season if he does it. And that's not a threat. I just know how fed up I am of seeing that fall play. I can't have another season of it. My only salvation at the moment is that he's just trying to get to the summer to make some improvements in that area. And if he does, then I'm happy to see that. I feel we're going to buy a centre-back, good or bad, but do not think we're going to buy a CDM. Solskjaer rates McFred. None of my super chats were read yesterday, says Anchor. Well, I apologise that for Anchor. Not every super chat will get read. That's always been said. But I do try to read all of them as they go through. Mark, what do you think of bringing Hans Flick in from Bayern if Ole fails after season finishes in May? Mata and Matic need to be retired. Bring in Rice, says Chris. We're not sacking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in May, so even if we finished outside the top four, which is very, very unlikely, we're not sacking Solskjaer in May. He will be manager next season, and I think everybody needs to get their head around that. Although, I did do the video yesterday about top 5 CDMs that United could buy. There was a story yesterday from Bleacher Report saying that Murta, who's the football director, and Fletcher, who's the something else now, have both identified that Manchester United do need to buy a midfielder, but it's not a priority this summer. And if they do buy somebody, it will be a young player rather than an established player. I mean, it's almost like we're talking about a bloody left winger. Like, we don't need a left winger, but let's get a young player in for the future. Like, I have to just withdraw from this topic again and say that I'm not happy, but so what? What does it matter what I think? What does it matter what you think? You know, we don't have any influence on what the club are going to do. But I find it absolutely stunning, because I guarantee you that any competent manager in world football, whether it be Arteta, whether it be Mourinho, whether it be Pep Guardiola, whether it be Klopp, whether it be Graham Potter at Brighton, if they were in charge of Manchester United, 100% they would go for a midfielder. Now, I'm not saying that Mourinho's having a good season. He's not. And, Arteta's down in mid-table as well, and Potter could get relegated. But what I'm saying is they are competent managers. You can see what they try to do. I don't like what Mourinho tries to do, but I can see what he tries to do. Like Højbjerg coming in the summer. He tried to bring a right back in. He's trying to rebuild his defence. Attacking-wise, he's boring as bloody painting a white wall white. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. The fact is, competence isn't always about where you are in the league. It's about trying to, within what you are, sending a message of what you are. I know how Brighton play under Potter. I know what Arteta's trying to do at Arsenal. I know what Mourinho's trying to do at Spurs. I mean, it's not going to work. But Manchester United, I think if you sat any competent manager down and asked them about Man United and what they would do, I don't think many people would say go and get a striker. They would be on about a midfielder. So how United don't, I think it's, we used to be the mint with a hole, Polo, when we didn't have a number 10. We used to talk about this all the time. And anybody who's watched the channel for a long time will know this. Stop buying club signings, must be a manager signing, says David Page. Remember when we used to talk about, before Bruno came in, so 18 months ago, we used to spend a lot of time saying, we're a mint without a hole, we're a Polo, because we've got all these good players, and then we've got a hole around the number 10. And the number 10's the one that's going to make things happen. And we used to play Lingard there, Pereira there, Mata there. They were all crap. And we'd say, we've got all this talent. We've got Martial, you've got Rashford. And at that time, we had Herrera. And we had people like Matic when they were decent. And we had Pogba as well. And we said, we've got really good round the edge of the number 10. But we need the string-pulling number 10 to bring it all together. And we bought Bruno. And we did all right. We did pretty well, actually. Third, and now we're second. Well, now we've got a new problem. We've got another hole in the team, and it's called the pivot ahead of the centre-backs and behind the attack. It's a massive hole in that team, and the fact that we don't want to fill it is amazing to me. Things we say about Rice remind me of things we were looking to when we were looking to buy Harry. Good, but overhyped. Souček is the better in West Ham. Better midfield out there, says Ty. Well, Souček's not a holding midfielder for a start, so you're wrong there. I think Declan Rice is a player that I would trust, and I would be very happy if United bought him. But of course, there's no guarantee that any signing is going to do well. But I think any signing is going to be better than what we've got, because we don't actually have a centre defensive midfielder. Who would you take, Ndidi or Rice, to replace one of McFred, says Adewala. I would take Declan Rice, because I think Ndidi is quite injury prone, and I think Declan Rice is 3 years younger and has a steeper upward curve. But look, let me just bring this in as well. Mike Phelan was talking on the Manchester United podcast yesterday. Very upbeat, obviously very happy with what's going on at the club. And spent a lot of time talking about culture and hard work. And this, to me, is an issue in relation to maybe what Manchester United Football Club in general thinks is going on and what is actually going on in the fan base. Because there's a lot of talk about United DNA and culture and hard work. And we hear this from Ollie. We hear it from the board when they talk occasionally. And we hear about this all the time. The hard work, the culture, the DNA. And my issue is, for all this hard work and culture and DNA, I don't see any flair and talent on the pitch. I don't see any fear from the opposition. I don't see an identifiable way of playing football. I agree that there is a lot of hard work and that there is a lot of DNA and there is a lot of culture in that club. But I feel that we've become a football team that prioritises hard work and the DNA than actual footballing talent and imposing an attractive style of football on our club identity that puts fear into the opposition. I grew up in the late 80s and early 90s with a football club called Wimbledon, and they used to get called the Crazy Gang, and their whole emphasis was hard work. And they weren't very good at football, but they were ridiculously hardworking, and they were a pain in the arse to beat. And they used to, they were. But I just feel that, are we not getting the wool pulled over our eyes a bit? Because we've got all these United old boys, all these people who played for the club. Everyone's got the bloody DNA. But surely the most important thing of a Manchester United football club is, well, let me put it like this. Okay, you've got the current setup of United that's full of United legends and United DNA and culture. And then Pep Guardiola says, I've had enough at Manchester City. I want to manage a real football club with a real history, a real identity. I'm going to come to Manchester United. I'm going to halve my wages, and I'm going to just come here. Pep Guardiola comes in, and within 6 months, Manchester United are playing the best football they've ever played since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. Pep Guardiola has never played for Manchester United. He's got no DNA, and all the people he brings with him have never played for Manchester United. He's got no DNA, he's got no culture, and we're suddenly playing some of the best football we've played since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. What do you want? Do you want the DNA and the culture and the hard work, or do you want to play good football? And I think that's the thing that I sometimes get lost in here. It's like, of course I want people involved in the club like Solskjaer and Carrick and Phelan. Of course I want the DNA and understanding of what United's all about. But I don't really want it if the football's going to be like it is at the moment, because all I hear is hard work, DNA. But the football's atrocious. It's exactly the same as what Van Gaal and Mourinho did. So if you're going to talk about DNA and culture, then please can you replicate the DNA and culture that we're used to for the last 30 years, where we play risk football, attractive football, get the ball in the box, get the ball down the wings, and play higher up the pitch. I'm sort of tired of hearing about all the hard work and all the culture and everything like that, because I think after 2.5 years, it's not wrong to expect an identifiable attacking style of football. We've seen plenty of managers do it in a very short period of time. Brendan Rodgers had Leicester playing in a certain way within weeks. Frank Lampard, to his credit, last season went into Chelsea and had them playing in a very attractive style of play in weeks. Now, obviously, he's not in a job now, but Tuchel is a very good coach. He's got Chelsea playing in his own identifiable style in weeks. We are 2 years in with Ollie, 2.5 years in, and we still don't have actually, you could say we do have an identifiable way of playing, and if it is this way, then we're in trouble. I think we're all hoping that this park the bus counter-attacking back six style is just a stopgap till he gets better players. But to be fair, he's got far better players than Brighton, and they still play a better brand of football than us. So maybe this, maybe I'm digging my own hole here by saying that, let him get till the summer, he can get some better players in. I mean, realistically, there are many clubs in League One and League Two that play a better brand of football than us with far worse players. So are we not making excuses that the brand of football is going to improve when he gets better players? Because we should be playing better than we are. But yeah, I listened to the interview. I thought it was very good from Mike Phelan, and I would give it a listen if you've got time today. But my only thought process through it was that we're talking about hard work and everyone's working really hard and the culture's great, and we hear about this DNA all the time. But I don't understand why the football's so shit then. Like, hard work isn't an attribute at Manchester United. It's not. Because it should come as standard. You should not be being picked for Manchester United because you run around a lot. And unfortunately, I think we see that a lot. And if you're having to pick people who run around a lot who aren't that talented, then again, that just shows how crap your recruitment is. Because we used to have people who ran around a lot as standard, but we're also some of the world's best footballing talents. And that's where we're going wrong. Do you think Donny can become that pivot we need? And Ollie rates McFred too high. We could see that during the FA Cup game. McFred was his backup plan, says Sashin. Yeah, I mean, look, I would be worried about McFred. I would be very worried about them. I would be expecting them to keep playing for the foreseeable future, probably well into next season now that we're not looking at a centre defence midfielder. And unfortunately, the evidence is there. It's not this season that people have been talking about Maguire and Lindelof. I remember all of last season, people were saying Bailly needs to play. I remember Bailly playing against Chelsea in February last year. We beat them, was it 1-0 or 2-0? And he dropped Bailly for the next game. Even though we went to Stamford Bridge in the league, kept a clean sheet, and Eric Bailly was fantastic, he dropped him for the next game, which was a home game against somebody shit. I think it might have been Brighton or someone like that. So, Solskjaer's been standing by Maguire and Lindelof against the odds for well over 18 months. Do you think he's going to suddenly not do it with McFred? So I think McTominay and Fred will almost have to grind us into submission. We'll have to almost accept them as players. But I mean, they're not going to get any better. They're not going to get any better. I think Fred's 27, 28, and I think McTominay's 24, 25. They're not going to suddenly turn into prime Steven Gerrard or Roy Keane. That's not going to happen. But I think that we will probably just get ground down into submission and start to accept that, because we see it every week, that this is the norm. Ollie needs to take the handbrake off and be braver, says Sanjit. I don't think he can take the handbrake off, though, because I don't think those players we just mentioned there are good enough to allow us to play more attacking football. Mark, they talk about hard work. It's the same old crap in every area of our club. They should try being a supporter. That's hard work, says Andy and Bruno. I want to just talk about Patson Daca. This is the striker that Man United have been linked to now. There's no question that Man United are looking at a striker, is there? I think we can all agree that Manchester United are looking at a striker. Now, ridiculous the sort of money that we might be looking to spend on a striker. Erling Harlan for 120 million is just it's terrifying when we need to look at other areas, as I've said. But Daca is interesting, playing in the Austrian league, not the Australian, at Salzburg, which is also where Haaland was, of Zambian nationality. I think he's about 22. He's around 6 foot, quick, scoring loads of goals in that Austrian Bundesliga. Price-wise, I don't know what he's going to cost. People are talking about £80 million. He's got about 3 years left on his contract. He plays for Salzburg. You're not going to pay £80 million for a Salzburg striker. There's a big element of risk. There is talk of Real Madrid. There is talk of Man City. There is talk of Liverpool. And now there is talk of Manchester United. I think I like the look of this player. I do. But I'm not going to pretend that just because he's scoring loads of goals in the Austrian league, he's great. I think Charlie Austin would score a lot of goals in the Austrian league. But his raw attributes in relation to his pace, his height, his ability to score a lot of goals that aren't, tap-ins, and I think he's only scored 1 penalty this season. So he's not stat padding. I think he'd be a good. I think he's a good option, and I think you know what? I mean, look, I'm not going to say go and get this lad, but I think if you could get him for, I mean, he's not going to cost 80 million. I mean, let's get real. 40 million. I mean, even Harlan was banging in all sorts of goals for Salzburg, and he still went for less than 20. So I wouldn't imagine you're going to have to pay any more than 40 million for him. And I think for that price, an out-and-out striker brought into the club who is of the right age group, who has been prolific, who comes in and battles it out with Martial and Greenwood if Cavani goes. I think this is the sort of striker we should be looking at. I don't think we should be looking to bring in the world's best young striker. I don't think we need to spend ridiculous amounts of money. So, look, I would like to think there's some truth in this, because I think Manchester United should be looking to spend about £40 million on a striker, because other areas are more important. But we'll have to wait and see. 30 million max, says Marvin. Well, yeah, you could potentially get him for that as well. But Harry Kane, please, no thanks. I don't want Harry Kane. He would cost ridiculous amounts of money, and I think he'd be injured for half of the season, every season as well. Someone asked about Aguero. Well, I'm going to take some of your questions now. Aguero would be very welcome at Manchester United if he wasn't so unwelcome. He's a Manchester City legend. I mean, they only started creating them about 10 years ago, but all I think about Aguero is Aguero, and I couldn't watch Sky Sports for 3 months after that. So Aguero wouldn't come to Manchester United. I mean, football is odd, but no, that would never happen. Yeah, get your questions in. Nikola Milenkovic says, Dean, Milenkovic isn't going to happen. Milenkovic is just his agent talking about Manchester United to increase interest. I don't think Milenkovic suits Manchester United as much as a Kounde or a Torres or a Varane. He's very, very, very similar to Harry Maguire in relation to his best attributes. So apart from his price, because he's only got 1 year left on his contract, I don't think he suits us. I think he'd be a good player for, I could see him at Man City, I could see him at Liverpool, and I think he'd do well, and people would go, we should have bought him. But I think you've got to screw your head on sometimes and go, look, just because a player goes and does well at a club doesn't mean that we should have him. I think Maguire and Milenkovic are too similar, so that wouldn't work for me. Ollie doesn't have the champions dominating elite mentality, he just has the underdog mentality, hence the favouritism for McFred and Magaluf, says Varane. You know what? I think, Varane, you've hit something absolutely superbly on there. I mean, I probably don't do it enough, and I don't know whether we all do it enough. What is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's mentality as a manager? What is it? What is it? Because even David Beckham yesterday was saying he's quiet, hard-working, quiet guy. And I think he gives off that underdog mentality. Now, look, whether he is that or not, we don't sit in the dressing room. We don't know what he's like. But you are, as an entertainer, you are what you give off publicly. What you're like behind the camera, nobody knows that. What you do in front of the camera is what you get judged for if you are an entertainer. Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, had, by his own admission, has said, I'm not one of those people that likes to shout and get angry. You've got loads of people saying how quiet and reserved he is. And I think that therefore, and the way that he plays football in relation to this defensive hit on the break style, he is a very reactive personality, and his team has that identity as well. It's a reactive team. It's a counter-attack team. It's you attack me, and the silent assassin. That's what he was like as a player. You know, there's not much given away, but can be very deadly in short bursts. And, you know, that's what Ollie was like as a striker. As a striker, you're not in the game very often, are you? But when you get the chance, you take it. Should we be surprised by the way we play football under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Because as a player himself and as a personality, he's quiet. But he's obviously very... he's an assassin. That's what he is. And I think our team is like an assassin. You don't even know that we're there most of the time, but then we'll come out with 3 points. We'll kill a game. We'll get a chance and we'll take it. And I think that's what we're like. We win games by 1 goal. We don't often win by 3 or 4 goals. We don't dominate the opposition. We don't batter them into submission. We sort of hijack them. We assassinate them when they're not expecting it. You know, Man City can have 90% of the ball and we'll just defend, bang, goal. And that's our identity. And that's an in-keeping identity of what the identity that Solskjaer gives off, I suppose. Mark, how much do you think that 6-1 defeat impacted Ollie's mentality, says Mia? No, I don't agree with this, Mia. I don't agree with the fact that we got beat 6-1 by Spurs, so it's made Ollie go defensive. We got beat by 6-1 by Spurs in September. All of last season we played counter-attacking football as well, so I don't agree with that, no. And also, that was a freak result. We were down to 10 men for most of that game, and there was some stupid defensive errors as well. Do Manchester United need Andre Silva? I mean, he's another option. Assassin FC, yeah. Maybe that's what we should call ourselves. 6-1, did Ollie big time? It changed a lot for Ollie Sashash. Well, it didn't. It didn't, did it? Because we were already playing like this last season. If Man United were a free... I tell you what, it's irrelevant now. Van Gaal got changed by getting stuffed by Leicester. When he first came in the club, he played quite expansive football. Then we got spanked by Leicester and he went very, very pragmatic. But Solskjaer's been playing pragmatic for way before that 6-1 Spurs game. So I can't use that as evidence personally. I would get Andre Silva over Daca, and Silva would be around 30 million. And again, Milo, I agree that would be the sort of signing I would look at. Somebody a little bit cheaper, because this Harlan thing is just very frustrating. Kessie from AC Milan, Benson. I think if Pogba went, he'd be a good signing. I mean, it terrifies me that, you know, realistically, we're talking about all this improvement, but we all know in the back of our heads we could lose Pogba and Van der Beek this summer. I mean, definitely Pogba. I think Pogba's going to go. I really do. And that's going to be a huge loss on a team that needs massive improvement already. James says, Ollie wanted to change the way... Oh, sorry, I was going to read that, Vandy Candy. Change the way we play this season to be on the front foot, but after the 6-1 game, he realised this squad isn't good enough. What a load of crap, James. Do you spend time having Sunday lunch with Ollie and he told you that then? So Ollie wanted to be more expansive this season, but saw the 6-1 loss that we couldn't do it. What a load of shite. We were expansive against Leeds 2 months later. Like, I can't believe there are people out there that think one result totally changes and justifies the way that we've been playing for 2 years. We've been playing counter-attacking football for 2 years. What did we do against Chelsea and Man City last year when we beat them? We took 12 points against Chelsea and Man City, sitting back and hitting teams on the break. So it's got nothing to do with that. And let's not forget, when we played Spurs, we weren't fit. Pogba wasn't fit, Matic wasn't fully fit. We hadn't even had a pre-season. I think that Spurs excuse is laughable. Absolutely laughable. Patson, Daca, Neto, Fofana and Kessie. Wow. Well, we're not getting Fofana. Don't fall into that trap. Is Edison leave because I heard we wants to go to Poca Junior, says Greg Livingston. And Ollie's always been counter-attack FC, says Pag. And should we get Sionku rather than Kounde? Oh my God. Why are people talking about Fofana and Sionku? Do you know what club they play for? They play for Leicester. Leicester are in an FA Cup semi-final and they're right behind us in the league. And they would want 80 million because that's what they charge for centre-backs. Come on, we've got to get real. We don't just buy wrong, we sell wrong. One example, Blind was sold before others. Jones and Rojo could have used Blind in the CDM role, says Sanjay. Yeah, but you know why Daley Blind left? Daley Blind left because he knocked on the door and said, I'm not getting first team football, I want to play football. That we weren't wrong to sell Daley Blind. Daley Blind is an ambitious, good player. And he was like, am I going to play first team football? No, I want to go. Phil Jones and Rojo are sat back there getting the paycheck, you know. So we didn't walk into a room and say we're selling you two can stay. Daley Blind is an ambitious, good footballer and said I want to play football. So you know it's very difficult to sell players who aren't good enough, but also aren't ambitious enough to go and get a move because they know they're onto a good thing. Centre back and CDM would be fine for me. Our attack is good enough, says Fian. I mean, if we lose Cavani, we're going to have to get a striker. I agree with that, but we shouldn't spend the whole budget on it. I'd like Lamptey as a competitor for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Stanley, yes, I would. And Sally Devil Red says, and if the 6-1 changed his mind after one game, why hasn't watching months of dual football altered his attitudes? Yeah, exactly. To be fair, he didn't develop his McFred obsession until the Everton game when his job was on the line, says Gustav Hagendal. Yeah, and I think Gustav's right. I think, you know, this weird obsession with losing 6-1 to Spurs is not the game where everything changed. The game where everything changed is Gustav. The game where everything changed with Solskjaer was when he lost to Istanbul. The very next day, the Manchester Evening News said United had spoken to Pochettino. We beat Everton at Goodison Park on the lunchtime, and Ollie came out and lost his shit, trying to say it was about having to play within 2 days, but it wasn't really about that. It was about the story in the Manchester Evening News. And what team did he pick against Everton? He had Dan James in it, he had Juan Mata in it, I think he played McFred, and it was basically counter-attack FC against Everton. We tried to just keep a clean sheet and get results, and he saw it worked and he stuck with it because he had to stick with it, because even that one result against Everton didn't keep his job safe. His job was not safe for a very long time, and I think that's what we've seen. And I think since Everton we have only lost one game in the Premier League. So I think that's the game. That's the game where everybody got excited because Pochettino could have been coming to United, and Ollie went on that amazing run. That was where he went back six, McFred. You know, that was what he did. Good racehorses make good jockeys and trainers. Not easy for Ollie with a bunch of donkeys. Ollie is good enough but needs players, says Carl R. And I think we will see that in the summer. Yeah. It was McTominay, Mata and Bruno as midfield, says GVAD. Well, it must have been. It can't have just been McTominay. He wouldn't have played McTominay on his own. He must have put Matic or Fred with him, to be fair. As soon as we get a centre-back and a CDM, then I will be happy and call that a successful summer transfer window, says Kian. I would. I think sometimes you've got to put aside obsessions with superstar players and think about building a team. And you know what? If Man United got a decent defensive midfielder and a decent centre-back this summer, and they want to buy a top-class striker next summer, I'm all for it. But let's build a team first. That's what I think. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Please smash a like on the video. I'm back again tonight at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock show tonight, as per usual. And there'll probably be a video this afternoon as well. This international break is actually flying by, I think. Can I just say as well, my career mode is back today. That's football. I couldn't do it yesterday because I was out and about a bit. So that's football career mode will be back this afternoon at about 3:30. And we do have celebration mugs available now. Things that you put your tea and your coffee in. The link's in the video description. We've got all sorts of different designs. And we've got 2 million subscribers, United Stand emblem mugs. So check them out. I think I'll have mine actually, so I'll be able to show you yours later. It's coming today. What do you think of AZ? I don't know anything about him, Joe Comerford, unfortunately. He's tearing it up in Era Division. He's an AZ striker apparently. So check him out. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Speak to you all in a bit.